Many years ago, a poor widow and her only son Peter lived in the mountains near Quebec. They had no land, so Peter's mother worked on the neighbor's fields from morning till night to earn a living. Peter loved his mother very much and always obeyed her. He was a big, short, thin boy, much bigger and shorter and thinner than other boys of his age. He tended Rugacha the goat every day. It was a quiet animal. When it was grassing, Peter could play with stones, make a little watermills by the brook, and carve crystals from them. Peter was poor but happy. The melodies he whistled were as sweet and lovely as a bird's song. His mother couldn't have had any better son, and Rugacha couldn't have had a better shepherd than Peter. Peter was getting older and hungrier from day to day. He needed more and more food. His mother became worried. One day she said in tears, "Peter, we don't have enough bread. You must go to the neighbor and ask to become his shepherd." It was not easy for Peter to leave his beloved mother and Rugacha, but he didn't say a word to make his mother sadder and more unhappy than she already was. With a bundle in his hands and sorrow in his heart, he left his mother and Rugacha. His mother stayed lonely and unhappy in a little old hut.
The neighbor who gave Peter his first job as a shepherd was a rich farmer. He had a lot of cows, goats, and sheep. Peter tended his flock of sheep in the mountains. He could no longer play with stones and whistle his songs because the neighbor's sheep were not as tired and good as Grandpa. He had to run after them the whole day long, but that was not the worst thing in the world. Peter spent many more bitter hours with the other shepherd boys. They were most unfair and unfriendly towards their new comrade. They teased him because he was weaker and smaller than them, because he was the weakest and the most timid of all. The other shepherd boys were taller and more vigorous than Peter, but they were less kind, less gentle than him. Many times Peter was hurt by the words, and after he was brought to a little and bony, he dreamed about becoming taller and stronger. He wished to be as strong and as brave as the other boys. He wished to become even stronger and more courageous than them. When the shepherd boys played, they forced Peter to take care of their sheep. When they were thirsty, they wanted him to bring water from the spring. If he did not obey them, they bit him and threw stones at him. He wished to go home to his mother, but he did not do that because he knew that his return would have made his mother sad. One day the shepherd boys sent Peter again the fetch water. After he had drunk, his sheep was lost. His heart was full of fear when he ran after the sheep. He looked everywhere, but he could not find his flock. Finally he came to a large meadow high in the mountains. It was the most beautiful meadow he had ever seen. He was tired, hungry, and thirsty, but his sheep were nowhere to be seen. Suddenly he stopped and said,
Girl sleeping in the grass. She had a long white dress, long golden hair, and a wave of flowers on her head. The sun was shining straight into her face. It was too hot for the lovely face of the unknown girl. Peter brought some branches and put them around the girl's head as a green roof to protect her from the sun. Peter forgot his sheep. He just stared at the sleeping beauty. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen in his life. He did not know that the girl was a mountain fairy. When the fairy opened her eyes, she was surprised to see a green shelter around her face. She guessed that was the work of the shy, silent boy who was standing there looking at her. "Thank you, Peter," the fairy said. You are a kind, gentle boy. What can I do for you? I wish to thank you for your kindness." When Peter heard these words, he his lost flock of sheep. And he remembered the cruel and wicked comrades. My wish is great, greater than you accept, young good lady, Peter answered. Tell me, the fairy announced him. I will do for you whatever you wish. Peter said, I wish to be as strong as the other shepherd boys. I wish to be even stronger than those who make my life more endurable every day. Follow me, the fairy said, and took him to a big rock to a spring of water. Drink this water, the fairy ordered, and offered him water in cupped hands. When Peter drank the water, he felt a strange power flew into his hands. There was a branch tree growing nearby. He grabbed it and pulled it out of the roots. The fairy offered him a second drop. When he drank it, he was strong enough to pull a fir tree out of the ground. After the fairy's third offer of water, Peter lifted a huge rock high above his head. Peter's science wish has been fulfilled. Now he was happy. He wanted to thank the lovely unknown girl, but she had changed into a cloud and disappeared. Now Peter understood that she was a magic fairy.
Peter still, Peter still looked as thin and weak as before, but he was very strong. He was the strongest and most vigorous boy in the country. Peter found his sheep and went towards the village. He sang on the way down from the mountains. His song was happy, gay, and loud. When the shepherd boys heard him, they wondered what had happened. Peter was such a timid, frightened boy. Why was he singing loudly and happily now? The shepherd boys were thirsty. It was hot. Where have you been for so long, Peter? They cried when they saw him coming. Bring some water, Peter, quickly. You go and get it if you want to drink. Peter answered. The shepherd opened their mouth in surprise. Look here, Kleppig, how dare you? Would you like to feel the force of our fists? They threatened. Come here if you wish to feel mine, Peter answered. The boys burst into laughter. Is Peter mad, or does he really wish to be beaten? They jumped at him, they caught him, and started beating him. But Peter grasped the nearest boy and swung him through the air. The boy stopped and stared. Where did his strange power come from?
They cried out in fear and ran away. Peter pulled a birch tree and ran after them, waving it back and forward to drive them away, but he didn't hurt them. He was too good that hurt to anybody. Even now, when he was strong, he was no less kind and gentle than before. He forgot all the ugly and insulting words the sheep boys had said to him when he was weak. He did not think of revenge, nor did he want to be a shepherd anymore. He drove the sheep to his master, took his bundle, and went off home to his mother in the village.
When his mother saw him, she was scared. Did the master drive you away? I live here, Peter said. I will live here with you, mother. We wouldn't be caught anymore. What are we going to live on? His mother inquired. I'm going to clear this land of stones, Peter said, looking at the stony ground around the hut. Well, so we. I will take grain to the mill, and you will make white bread. That is how we are going to live from now on. How will you clear this land of stones, my boy? You are too weak for such hard work. Look, mother. Peter lifted a huge rock and threw it far away. His mother stared and didn't say a word. She was too happy. As Peter said, so happened. He cleared the land of stones and turned it into fertile soil. His mother made good white bread. They were never hungry again. They loved each other and lived happily ever after.